And hello there. Good afternoon. For those of you who are already out there, welcome to a still freezing Pittsburgh, still snow-covered, and not looking like it's going to get any warmer in the immediate future. So, hello, Shelley from Mount Lebanon. Yes, tomorrow I'm talking about Dickens to the Dickens Society. Sorry you're going to miss it, and I'm afraid I don't think they'll be recording it, so sorry about that. But I will be talking more about Dickens later in the year. Julie from Oakland, hello to you. Nice to see you. And Greg. All these lovely people with nice big smiley faces. Hello, Kay. Yes, as I say, I will be talking about more Dickens later in the year. Yes, tomorrow I have to talk about putting Dickens on stage to the Dickens Society, which is always a bit terrifying because they probably know a lot more about Dickens than I do. But we'll give it a go, and there is a lunch. Hello, Marge from Brookline. You're going to be there tomorrow. Good go. Hello, Robert. Oh, yes, come on, rub it in again. Sunny, clear, and 80 degrees. God, I don't know. Highly unfair. I hope you're all enjoying our lovely little rolling banner at the bottom of the page. This new platform we're on is brilliant. Much, much better. And lots of pretty things. Hello, Grace. I love that. A fairly soft evening here in Dublin. For those of you who are not Irish, a fairly soft evening means it's probably flogging down with rain. It's on the principle of the grand soft day. Yes, Robert, I will be getting to Albi, I promise you. I'm going to be doing some webinars on all the classic, the classic American writers again. Hello, James. So we will be looking at Albee and Tennessee Williams and Eugene O'Neill and all of those things. And what I want to be able to do is do what I'm doing today, which is to bring in another person so that we can have a discussion on those particular writers. But Albee is a particular passion of mine because Beckett was a particular passion of his. And so he comes into that category. I missed somebody there. Hello, David. Glad you caught up with it. It's just a good reminder to everybody that if you're not listening now, you won't be hearing what I'm saying. But anyway, if you're not listening now, almost immediately afterwards, hello, Dennis. You can pick it up almost straight away after this broadcast on YouTube. And they're all going to slowly, in fact, by quicker and quicker, start to accumulate on YouTube. Pretty much all the webinars from last year. So if you missed anything or you want to look at something again, they'll all be up there on the website. Hello, Angela. You're going to miss me at the Dickens as well. Never mind. There's plenty of time and opportunity. We'll be doing these webinars forever. So if you miss me at a talk, you can always assume I'll get back to it again on the webinars. Nice coffee, this. So, there's the information about the website. And I think we're upgrading our website in the near future as well. All sorts of exciting things happening in Pict. Yes, indeed, Dennis. It'll all be up there. I know that some people have been, and they're very welcome to, using some of these webinars as discussion points or topics for discussion as part of education programs, and that's great. Always remembering that everything I tell you may be wrong. But it's the whole idea is to open up discussion, have people talking about things. And that's why I always encourage people, if you have questions, if you have observations, do send me an email. Always delighted. Hello, Cindy from Oakland. I think we've got good listenership today because nobody's going out in the cold. And I wouldn't blame you. I wouldn't go out there if you have no reason to go out. Stay in. It's not the snow. It's just that, that kind of cold that just hugs you, and you can't shake it off. I went out a couple of days ago just for about 30 seconds to get the mail out of the box, and I came in. I was shivering for about 5 minutes. Of course, it could be me. I'm desperately unhealthy. Hello, Catherine from Norfolk, Virginia. Hello, Aoife from Dublin. We all know Aoife. Aoife is one of our regular contributors. I believe it's raining in Dublin. Nothing new there. It's always raining. And people always say, why is Ireland so green? Because it never stops raining. How are we doing? Oh, it's 2:00. We'll give it another minute just for the latecomers to catch up, and then we'll make a start. You'll notice I'm wearing headphones. I always do that when we have a guest, and this week we have a guest. And in fact, next week we'll have the same guest. Okay, hello. Spring is coming soon. I love an optimist. Not according to Punxsutawney Phil, but you'd have to be Pennsylvanian to get that. Barbara, hello. And Amy in Oakland. And Marlene from Squirrel Hill. Welcome. I do love it when you all say hi. You can always have that terrible feeling that you're looking at a computer screen talking to yourself. So it's really nice when people say hello. Always say hello. I'm always delighted to greet you back. It's good to know you're out there. And I think we've been getting a slight increase in our outreach, which is a good thing. It's always nice to know that the numbers are going up. It's not so nice when they go down. Anyway, I think we'll make a start. Okay, so today we are going to talk about somebody who is beyond question one of my two favorite playwrights in the world. Both my favorite playwrights are dead, which, like sheer coincidence. One is Shakespeare, who's dead 400 years, and the other is Samuel Beckett, who's dead for about 30. Joining me today, I have Hazel Leroy, who is, when I say the term renowned, I mean it, renowned teacher and actress in Pittsburgh, and like me, has an absolute passion for the writings of Samuel Beckett. So I'm asking Hazel, come and join me now. There she is. Hello and welcome.
Hi, Alan. Hi, everybody. And it is so nice for people to check in and hello. It's it's great.
It's nice to know they're out there and they want to listen to us. So anyway, as I say, this week and next week, we're going to be talking about Samuel Beckett. And what we've decided is we're going to talk about two of his plays in this particular set. And I may come back to more Beckett later on in the year. But we're going to address what I consider, first of all, the masterpiece, which is Waiting For Godot, which it was first staged 1950, I think, and in French. And he wrote it in French. He then rewrote it. To say he translated it is wrong. He actually rewrote it into English, but into a very particular kind of English. What I would describe as Hiberno English, the kind of good quality English as spoken, particularly in Dublin, particularly in South County Dublin, or sometimes we call it Dorky English. And the reason I wanted us to address this play in the way we are doing so is because, and Hazel, you said this to me when I first asked you, would you join me on this, that so many people fail to recognize that what he wrote is funny, that his plays are comedic, and that he described Waiting For Godot as a tragi-comedy. And it's equal on both sides. So naughty me, forgot to turn off my phone. When you think of Godot as being funny, I mean, I don't want to put words into your mouth. It's comedy. It's fundamental wit. How would you describe it? What way would you look at it?
Godot is a parable. It's a metaphor for what we go through in this life. As you have often said, and we've often talked about, we are born, and of course, from the moment an organism is born, it begins its progress towards death. And so the reason he called it a tragi-comedy is because one can look at existence as something very serious, but within the span that we live, if we have no joy, if we find no joy, if we find no fun, if we don't play any games, then it's a very terrible thing. And I think that he builds that into the play. They are always searching for a way to pass the time pleasantly. It doesn't always work, but then, human beings don't always succeed at being pleasant in their own lives. So I'm just blathering, Alan.
I think this is good, because one of the most prophetic lines in the play is the very first line, when Gogo is trying to take off his boot and fails miserably and says,
nothing to be done.
And that's the point. There is nothing to be done, because there is an inevitability about everything. And on the tragi side of the tragi-comedy equation, Pozzo later on describes life in the most grueling and appalling. They give birth astride of a grave. The light gleams an instant, then it's night once more. You come from extreme darkness, you go to extreme darkness. There's this one flash of life, and that's it. So, and there's nothing to be done about it. As you say, the moment you're born, you're going to die.
But we all, and we all should know that. We all should have the grace to accept that. And I keep thinking about the time that Pict was about to do Godot, and it was right after I had been widowed, and one doesn't know that the amount of work one has to do, to negotiate being alone, particularly because my late husband Richard was the one that did all of the numbers, all of the business part of it, right? And I was Alan saw me. I was probably what looked like a scarecrow, and he said to me, I am doing a talk at Barnes and Noble about Godot, and you will be there.
Am I that bullying?
I said, it is good for you. You will be there. And I went, and damn it, if it wasn't good for me, that I just needed to hear, hear about life, and hear about life through this wonderful metaphor.
And I love the fact that you describe it. It is a metaphor for life. And the tragi-comedy aspect of it to me is that life is a tragedy and life is a comedy, and they go hand in hand constantly. You're never all of one or all of the other. Mm-hmm. If you like to put it that way, life is God's joke.
Well, and then you talked about when you said fun and games, when you said that this is what we were going to talk about, and I am immediately we Ellen and I spoke, and we were going to I thought we're gonna plan all of this, and then Ellen said, oh no, we're gonna have a conversation. And I said, okay, take off the teacher hat. I'm not here to force my undergraduates to love Beckett as much as I do, which never works anyway. And I'm going to relax, and I'll just go back to the text.
So go back to the text. Tell me about what makes you fun? What makes you laugh in this play?
Well, there are a whole lot of things that make me laugh. I mean, there are different games throughout the text. The one that, of course, comes immediately to mind is, I mean, this man did his time with James Joyce. There are a number of linguistic calisthenics that he does. Let's find the right. I'm trying to find the right page. Let's insult one another. Let's find the right insult, and just a wonderful game where I'm going to top you with everything that I say, ending with Gogo saying critic, and that is the ultimate insult. We cannot, we can't go any farther than that. What a fun game that is.
And also, the fact that as you mentioned his Joycean connection, that he will use words that seem to have no appropriateness or sense. I mean, especially in that one. He uses it in Lucky's speech as well. In this, it's a metaphor. We are constantly striving to be precise in our articulation of a thought until eventually, and it's a bit like I was talking about with Oscar Wilde as well, this notion that you set up a proposition and then virtually do just undercut it, and comedy occurs. And Beckett does this brilliantly throughout. Lucky, for instance, Lucky's, the fabled Lucky's speech is a perfect example of that, of using the complexity of language and constant repetition to create what is in fact very funny and very tragic.
The going through Lucky's speech and trying to make a sense of it, getting rid of all of the references he makes to the very, very funny, Belcher and Fardoff, the very funny authorities that he's quoting. That all of that is meaningless, and you get down to, well, I got down to, and over the years it's expanded a little bit, it's retracted, it grows, but that the essence of his speech is, given the existence of a personal God who loves us dearly and suffers, it is established beyond all doubt that man wastes and pines and fades away unfinished.
Absolutely, but he does. It's a brilliant
You have to go through all of that stuff to get to it.
But that's the point. You have to go through all of that stuff in life to get to it. And what he's doing is I think, because I always find it hysterically funny. I was very fortunate in that, for 20 years, I sat beside one of the best Luckies the world has ever seen, Stephen Brennan, presenting this in such a way that you laugh and laugh, and even to the point that in the script, Gogo and Vlad and Didi are both laughing at him and appalled by him and shocked by him and bored by him, because that's how we feel about life, and that Lucky is taking us through this line of life. That that long list of sports.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
taking your distillation, no matter what you do, even if you take exercise, even if you, in spite of the tennis, no matter what you do. And there's a phrase that he uses, again, people sometimes uncertain what he means by it, where whatever you do, however hard you try, you will end up in an abode of stones.
Abode of stones.
A graveyard.
Yeah.
So what I think Beckett himself said, if you want to understand the play, you've got to understand Lucky's speech. It's all in Lucky's speech.
Yeah, well, and that's the big game, isn't it, Alan? It's with Godot. It's find the meaning. Whole classes, seminars have been taught on this. Find the meaning, and it can either be torturous or you can have fun.
So how would you accept the proposition? And more books have been written about Beckett and about this play than probably anything outside Shakespeare. How would you accept that proposition that finding the meaning means that you're going about it in the wrong way? Well,
I think we all take ourselves too seriously. I know I do.
Me too.
And when that he also famously said that everything you need to know about this play is in the text. There aren't any hidden anything. It's there. And he does it. I mean, he puts it all in there. So that that you go back to it, and that you're quite right, Alan, in trying to identify the fun, the games that are happening. There's the linguistic games. I can top you with anything. There are all these social games within it, and my favorite, and it probably has a lot to do with you, with the social games, is one that I'm guilty of, a game that I play frequently, and that is after Pozzo's wonderful declamation, right? He asked Didi and Gogo, well, what do you think? So, and that he's fishing for praise. So that social game that we play, and particularly performers play, and I admit it, that asking for praise, but trying to couch it in such a way that we appear to be asking for a critique, an honest critique.
But what we want is actual praise.
What we actually want is praise.
When we were first doing it, and I had a discussion with the director, Walter Asmus, and Walter was Beckett's associate for over 25 years. And I said, I always have this feeling that Pozzo, Beckett, when Beckett was a young man, the kind of theatre that he would have been conscious of was very much the actor-manager's theatre. There were touring companies going around Ireland. The most famous was an actor called Anu McMaster, who did seasons in Stratford-upon-Avon and then would take Shakespeare around to the towns and village halls of Ireland. And it was a very much declamatory form. He was a brilliant actor, but a very much declamatory form of actor. And I often think that there are aspects of Pozzo that are based on that, because he is a performer. He is that old-fashioned actor who has props and a stage manager with Lucky, and as you said, wants praise but asks for it as if he wants criticism and doesn't like it when he gets it. And that's Beckett not merely taking a poke at life and our behavior, but also taking a poke at theatre as well, which he does constantly through the play. When Gogo wants to hide and Vladimir points to the audience and Gogo rejects it, and he says, "No, I can't. I don't blame you. I'm going to go out there."
Well, it's like he can't break that fourth wall either. I mean, he just can't. No. He cannot bring himself to do it. It's not something that we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
That whole sequence where I had this was $1.95.
God be with the days.
A long time ago. So, but that entire thing when Didi and Gogo are watching the Pato and Lucky show, and they are commenting on their experience watching Pato and Lucky, and they're sort of commenting on their experience, which is also the audience's experience watching this show. In
that sense, they become the critic.
Yeah, they become the critic. It's it's a charming evening we're having, and it's not over. It's like, that. Save my seat. I'm going to go off into the wings. It's at the end of the quarter on the left, because
there's always somebody in the audience who has to go out and pee at the climax.
Yes, exactly, and but save my seat. So when I get back, I can rejoin you. The theater games they play, and I have to refer to my notes, but one of my favorites, because my master's degree was on commedia, and in Act 2, the Lazzo of the Hat, the Commedia dell'arte Lazzo of the Hat, where they Didi refines Lucky's hat, and they pass the hat back and forth.
It's it's such a surprising moment in the play that he literally, as you say, slots in a complete commedia routine. Now, we also know that he had a particular passion for Laurel and Hardy, for Buster Keaton. He loved vaudeville. He loved all of that. But an awful lot of the Laurel and Hardy-esque routines are pure commedia. They have a line back hundreds of years. But that routine, that hat routine, is always such a surprise for the audience. And when done well, it brings the house down. Because it's unexpected.
Because you have to choreograph it to the, I mean, it's clockwork. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah. And when the final act gets thrown away, it stops the show.
Because, how else can you end that? Besides that. So, I mean, there are the theater games that he plays with it, because he knows what he's writing for. And he takes a great delight in that. He, of course, as a novelist, it must have been just wonderful to see his characters, actually living and breathing, and instead of just on the page.
It's. I think I always feel, and I remember talking to Walter Asmus about it, and he agreed that Beckett probably. I mean, we always imagine Beckett as this very dour, heavy. uncompromisingly miserable. He had a brilliant sense of humor and was apparently utterly charming and deeply friendly. I was told a story about him by Harold Pinter that I'll come to in a minute, but he must have just loved laughing at the humor that he knew was inside himself. I mean, there's one exchange that again, it's commedia. It's pure commedia. When Pozzo realizes he has to sit down, but doesn't know how to go about it. Because just to sit would reduce his own status. And Gogo says, well, could I be of any help if you ask me, perhaps? What? If you ask me to sit? Would that be a help? I fancy so. Oh, be seated, sir, I beg of you. To which Pozzo immediately responds to gain status. No, I wouldn't think of it. And yes. It's a game being played. And eventually, please take a seat. You'll catch pneumonia. You really think so? Yes. In that case, he sits. But this, I mean, it sounds so simple when you say it, but it's a purity of moment. It's a purity of comedy that, as you say, traces itself way back to the Commedia. You can see Pantaloon and Harlequin playing that scene.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And the different character types, of course, famously he loved Laurel and Hardy. He loved the silent movie clowns, and they go back. Pozzo going back to the master character in Commedia, right? The Pantaloni, right? As you said, and that's also a social game, though. That what he's playing, I couldn't dream of sitting down unless, I was invited to sit down.
Yeah.
Pozzo also plays the I am important game.
It's a wonderful game. It's a thing. I want to talk a little bit about social graces on that point, because Pozzo is a perfect example of the way we use language and the way we use words to up our level of importance. I mean, just shortly after that, when Pozzo begins to talk about the night, what is so extraordinary about it, qua sky? It is pale and luminous, like any sky at this hour of the day. Perfectly enough. In these latitudes, perfectly enough. When the weather is fine. And so it's not enough for Pozzo, like it's not enough for most of us just to say it. We have to say it with more authority because it ups our own status. And again, here, Beckett, it's a brilliant observation of what one might describe as artificial behaviorism, just to improve our status.
What a wonderful, yeah.
But also, there's a point about that, even in that speech, which is a very funny speech, because Pozzo at the very end runs out of words. He can't think of a final climactic word and just says, pop. But it is also part of that what the play never ever leaves is that single arc from birth to death, that it is inevitable, that in these latitudes it will happen, the sun will go, the moon will come. There is an inevitability to it, just as you are born and you will die. The sun comes up, the sun goes down, moon comes up, moon goes down. Inevitable, consistent, and it ties in absolutely to that they give birth astride of a grave, the light gleams an instant, then it's night once more, is exactly that same concept in the tragi side of the tragi-comedy as the description of moonrise is in the comedy side of the tragi-comedy. Mm-hmm. It's constantly balanced out. Sorry, I was just looking for a note myself there.
I'm trying not to look at my notes.
I know, but
which I can't read anyway because it's I scribbled.
Yes, talking about the theatricality, there's a sequence, and I'm trying to find it, as usual. They're talking about can't find the sequence now, but they're talking about the audience, but they seem to also be talking about humanity and the noise that humanity makes, the sound like leaves.
That is the most beautiful passage.
It's the most beautiful passage in the play in terms of
no, in the English language.
Well, yeah,
I'm sorry. That's my.
Yeah, I'd argue that Shakespeare had one or two as well, but
I know.
But what's wonderful about that sequence is its poetic beauty is almost unsurpassed, and yet they're looking at the audience when they're saying it, and suddenly the audience become all humanity, and you get this wonderful description of it's that, what was that wonderful line in Amadeus when Mozart talks about a duet becoming a trio, becoming a quartet, becoming an octet, and on, building and building until you have this vast chorus, which is in fact, I think, the end of Act 2 of Figaro. And then he puts into Mozart's mind, that's how God hears the world as a chorus. And in a way, Beckett is doing the same thing at that moment of describing humanity as a chorus of sounds.
Well, and he's talking about all the dead voices there too.
All the dead voices.
There, but it's just, we're incapable of keeping silent. It says Go-Go to Dee.
Yeah. Because you have to speak, you have to talk, you have to communicate. On that point, you mentioned a point to me the other day when we were chatting, which is the beginning of Act 2. And it's one of the most tender moments and scary moments when Gogo returns to Vladimir. You describe it.
Well, Gogo says to Vladimir, don't touch me, don't question me, don't speak to me. Stay with me.
Yeah.
And I'll tear up, which I do. I keep thinking of the time that he and his wife I guess it was his partner then, Suzanne, were with the underground in Paris, and at one point they had to flee, and that there were times when they were separated, and what they were doing was very dangerous during World War II. And I said to Alan that these are things that I have said before in my relatively safe little, middle class life. But can you imagine a woman during wartime being put into situations that are so potentially lethal, and what she had to go through? And I've always wondered whether Beckett was quoting her there.
It sounds like it. It's because the relationship between the two guys is of a mutual dependence.
Yes, it's like a marriage.
Vladimir must have somebody to talk to. He can't survive without it. Gogo must have somebody to protect him. He can't survive without it.
But there are limits too, because Dee says to Gogo, I don't want to hear your bad dreams. Gogo replies, but to whom?
Who else can I tell them to? Yeah.
Tell these dreams to, if not to you.
Yeah.
And so you're talking about all of the rules and regulations that two individuals set up in a relationship, and they're different for every relationship, and yet there is a similarity.
Yeah.
So and those are other games that we play. We play those games all the time.
Let me come to a game. Again, it's one of my favorites. I loved it, be acting in it for years. The only thing I didn't like was I was lying flat on my face across the body of another actor. But it is the conversation that Vladimir and Estragon have, that Gogo and Didi have, when they see Pozzo and Lucky on the ground. And the only thing Pozzo keeps saying is, help,
Help.
help. And they then have this incredible debate that goes on for like 4 pages as to whether to help him or not. First of all, to ascertain what it is he wants. He wants to get up. Well, why doesn't he? He can't. And then to go about, Vladimir expounds on this theory of, we were beginning to weaken. Now we're going to see the evening out. We're no longer alone, waiting for the night, waiting for Godot, waiting. All evening we've struggled. It's already, time flows again. The sun will rise. The sun will set, the moon will rise, and we away. The debate then goes on, as I say, for about 4 pages as to who he is, what he wants, and what to do about it. And it goes on and on and on, back and forth, until Vladimir says one line, which I think is the funniest line in the play. Let us not waste our time in idle discourse.
Exactly.
Now, my point is that, again, here, this is a beautiful satiric, I won't read the whole thing, but this speech he goes into, let us do something while we have the chance. It's not every day we are needed, not indeed that we personally are needed. Others would meet the case equally well, if not better. To all mankind they were addressed, those cries of help still ringing in our ears. But at this place, at this moment of time, all mankind is us, whether we like it or not. Let us make the most of it before it's too late. Let us represent well. And he goes on and on and on. This is the most beautiful metaphor for how we respond to those in need. We talk about it, we debate about it, we take it to Congress, we have a law, we then argue the law and take it to the Supreme Court, but we don't do anything.
And we never think to ask those that we are going to help what it is they need.
What do you want? And this, which makes the scene, it makes the scene very funny. It always plays with, and it gets laughs. It is funny. Because Vladimir attempting to explain to Gogo a simple concept, such as we must help our fellow man, without actually doing it, is funny in itself, but it is also, again, it's a wonderful metaphor for the way society reacts to those in need. And as you say, the last person you ever ask what they want is the person who wants.
And then, of course, at the end of it, when they finally decide that they're, because Pozzo has offered them money, and we're coming, and Gogo says, "What's the matter with you all?"
Yeah.
Because the entire, after going through all of that and finally going to help, saying, "What's the matter?" Like as if you hadn't discussed it to death, already.
Yeah. But it's very often, it's Gogo, Estragon, who actually comes up with the practical solution.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at the end of that entire sequence, when they've been over it and over it and over it and over it, again, we go back to that thing which is constantly repeated through the play, go, let's go, Vladimir, we can't. Why not? We're waiting for Godot. Oh, yeah. What do we do? Vladimir says, what about helping him? What does he want? He wants to get up. Why doesn't he? He wants us to help him to get up. Then why don't we? What are we waiting for? Which also always gets a laugh. Now, that brings me to the point, waiting for Godot. I always have a sort of stock answer when people ask me about these two plays. We're going to be talking about Endgame next week. What are they about? I said, well, the answer is in the title. Waiting.
And in French, of course, it's while waiting.
In French, En attendant Godot, while waiting for Godot, which I always think it's a pity he didn't put that into the English title, because it's not about the waiting, it's what to do while waiting.
One waits. Mm-hmm.
You are born, you die. What do you do in the meantime? You wait. You wait to be fed. You wait to be potty trained. You wait to go to school. You wait to go to college. You wait to get a job. You wait to get married. You wait to have children. You wait to die.
Or as Gogo says, we always find something
to do.
Give us the impression that we exist.
That's it. Yeah. Because what makes us exist? Our actions, what we actually do.
What we do.
So you've got a play that is about the essence of waiting. And you wait because you have a faith or a belief or a promise that something will turn up. It's a bit like Mr. Micawber in David Copperfield. The ultimate optimism that something will turn up. So what is Godot? Who is Godot? What you're waiting for.
That's what you're waiting for.
That's it.
You know, I have a little problem with the on the websites that promise students that they're going to get an A if they if they plagiarize from that website. When they ascribe, when they've decided that Godot is in fact God.
Which Beckett said,
if I had wanted it to be God, I would have said so.
Yeah.
He talks about salvation, but he doesn't talk about any Judeo-Christian, Buddhist, any kind of God that we can think of. It's simply whatever it is that means salvation to us.
Yeah.
And that could be anything.
Asleep in the barn in the hay.
Mm-hmm.
Precisely. That's so, which leads me rather nicely to the fifth character in the play, the boy, who keeps coming and saying he won't come today, but surely tomorrow. Which those who persist in believing that Godot is God say, well, isn't that an angel? Is that what it is? Is it something? No, it's a boy. Because everything in the play is exactly what Beckett says it is. It is a boy who comes in and says, Mr. Godot isn't coming.
Whole dissertations have been written about the difference between the shepherd and the goat herd.
Yeah.
And they're just boys that work for Godot.
Yeah, whoever or whatever.
And Godot they're delivering messages.
But is it also potentially, because I find that the two boy scenes both beautifully sad and ridiculously funny. And what makes me laugh is the inevitability of them. Because to me, the boys represent, if anything, they represent the promise unfulfilled. But even though the promise is unfulfilled, we go on.
Well,
we have to come back tomorrow. What for? To wait for Godot.
And of course, my favorite, well, not my favorite, but among my favorite two lines in the play is when Gogo says, I can't go on like this. And Dee Dee says, that's what you think.
Because we do. Now, this was another, I mean, it's a recurring theme in Beckett, this notion of going on, of continuing. I mean, in The Unnameable, the very last lines of it, I can't go on.
Come on.
You must go on. I'll go on. And what I love about that is, and it's the same in the French, I can't go on. You must go on. I'll go on. We all believe at some point, I can't keep going, I can't do this. The second line is an injunction, and it is humanity, it is life that says, like it or not. And it's exactly what Vladimir says. That's what you think.
Mm-hmm.
You'll go on. I will go on.
Yeah.
You know, it's part of that wonderful trap of life that Beckett has set us, that it doesn't matter whether Act Two is the next day or the next year or 100 years. It's just going on. It doesn't really matter. Why has Pozzo suddenly become blind and is now being led by Lucky rather than having Lucky on the end of a rope? It doesn't matter. What matters, it is existentialism in its most purest form. What is. What it happens. That's life. You know, what's the old joke? How do you make God laugh? Tell him your plans. You have this play in which it's almost like there is no plot. There's just life happening.
Isn't that, well, there is no plot, Alan.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No plot.
You know, I
Yeah.
wish that I could write your life for you. And so many times we try to write our lives.
Yes.
And how does it work out? How does that work out for you?
Well, you know, I keep saying this is why I think Waiting for Godot is the second greatest play ever written. Yes, King Lear is the greatest play ever written. But I think this one is so remarkable because it does succeed. And for what was essentially a first play from a poet, playing with theatre, almost discovering theatre as he went along. And I've said it before, I think that, you know, of the three great moments in the history of theatre 2,500 years ago, when it was invented by Greek poets, 450 years ago, when it was reinvented by you know, the golden age of Shakespeare and his, as particularly Shakespeare, who stopped writing about gods and
Little
kings.
Marlowe.
Yeah, well, Marlowe, okay, I'll go with it. But started turning gods and kings into human beings, and started writing about humanity. And I think the third great turn, for my mind, was in 1950 with the arrival of this play, because Beckett came and looked at theatre almost as if nobody had ever thought of it, and started again, and created the realization that a plot is an unnecessary device if you write the truth about the nature of people, and people are stupid, and people are funny, and people are ridiculous, and people exaggerate, and people whimper, and people are wonderful. Yeah. Very good point, because I suppose if you know this play, I mean, if people watching know this play, a lot of what we're saying may be true for you, and a lot of what we're saying you may be going, what the hell are they talking about? Because this play is a perfect example of, it is subjective. You must read this play subjectively, not objectively. What does it say to me? I told to you, Hazel, that Johnny Murphy, the actor who played Gogo in an endless Irish production, had played it once before, and he was in Buffalo, in upstate New York. And after the show, he used to go to this bar. And one night he goes into the bar, and the owner, wasn't behind the bar, another barman. And he said, where's whatever his name was, Tom? And the barman said, it was over there in the corner. And he went over, looked over, and there was Tom with his hands. So Johnny went over and said, you okay? He said, yeah, I saw the play. He said, what, you didn't like it? He said, that's my life. That's me and my wife. And he was crying. And which is why I say, of all the plays that you ever read this subjectively, because you're in it. We're all in it. It's this, and we all, if we read it honestly, and if we read it just moment by moment by moment, which is how it happens, it's funny because we're funny.
And it's sad because we're sad.
Yeah, it's a tragi-comedy. It's a perfect example. And like you say, there is no plot. There is no plot to life. There's no plot to this play. Has anybody out there got any questions? There we are. Look at that. Went up just as I said it. It's the magic of the platform. But if you have any questions, anything you want to say or disagree with, please say so. Because we encourage disagreement. It helps debate.
I mean, because I know I am right that is the most beautiful passage in the English language. Marlene, I wish that I wish I knew when I was even in grad school that I wish I had come at this the way I come at it now. I wish I, instead of as seriously as I took it. It evolves with time. I mean, I think when you're 20 years old, life is very, very serious. And it's funny that when you're 20 years old, you also don't think that you're ever going to die. And life is very, very serious. As we get, I don't know, maybe it's just me. As I get closer to my inevitable end, I find that things are very, very funny, except for going to the giant eagle. I do not find that.
Yes, I agree with you. There's let me look at Grace's question because I'll come back to it. Well, yes, I think, Grace, it's a good question, and I think it does. Part of it does demonstrate, because the set as described as a country road, a tree, a rock, nothing else, so that they are lost in a vast universe. They are small in comparison to the location they're in, and the moonrise is a major significance.
And it is also that they're the human figures in the wasteland.
Yeah.
That they're the only warmth, they're the only life. Even the tree in the beginning is barren.
Yeah.
Grace, you're right. The moon rising and rising so suddenly.
Yeah. As pot so propest. Pop.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
There's a thing about it, something you were just saying there. I remember I first came across the script of Waiting for Godot when I was in theatre school. It would have been around 1966, 67. So it was like 15, 16 years after it was first published. And reading it, very young, I was in my late teens, and thinking, I have no idea what this is about. I'm never going to have anything to do with this, not knowing I would spend most of the rest of my life working on it, with it, and around it. But anyway, when we did it in Dublin, I think we've been doing it it was like the 5th year of a 20-year repertory of it. The guy who played the original Go-Go in London, the original English production of it, came to see us and was completely blown away by how easy we made it, how easy we played it. And we said, well, I mean, you started it. You were and he said, no, we didn't understand it. We had no understanding. We were making it up as we went along because nobody understood how to do a play where nothing happens except conversation, except the games that you play. And I sort of reference that in my own mind to the fact, rather like Einstein, we stand on the shoulders of giants. You and I have a deeper understanding of it of its simplicity, of its purity, because of 50 odd years of discovery. And it was almost like over that 50 years, we had to unlearn what we thought theatre was and rediscover a new form, a purer form. I think that Beckett and Godot and his other plays are closer to Greek theatre than they are to Shakespeare. Even though he drew on Shakespeare and Dickens and Laurel and Hardy and all of those other influences, he found a way back to a kind of a simplicity of approach, a purity of approach.
This is an interesting comment by Blythe about the boringness of the play.
Yeah.
Which I guess I was in high school. I was around 1970 when I first encountered it. I think they thought it would harm younger minds. Well, and you have to understand that I went to high school in Oklahoma. And so that by exposing us to this, my teacher, God rest his soul, Chuck Lytle, was doing something very daring. He also had us read Hair. Oh, but the boringness of the play, Blythe. I had to set it aside for a number of years before coming back to it, because I knew that people that grown-ups made a big fuss over this, and but there were no thrilling anythings happening, and so I set it aside and figured that I'd get it later on maybe, and you said that it helped you to take action in your life. That's terrific. I just couldn't deal with it at all. So
my goodness me, there's a question on an existentialist reading of the play as far as Camus and life as absurd. 2 points here. It is existentialism. It is a perfect example of existentialism. It is moment by moment by moment. There is no calculation of a future, only a memory of a past. And what happens in the moment is what happens in the moment. Nothing else. There is no subtext in that sense. I've never liked the fact that it is generally included in this sort of catch-all portmanteau phrase, absurdist drama. I don't think of it as being absurd. Well, except that life is absurd.
Except that life is absurd. I mean, and if you've come through, Alan, if you've come through 2 world wars, the second of which was never supposed to happen, and I'm pretty much convinced that we're actually still fighting the First World War. But if you've come through that, and the atomic bomb, trying to force meaning, a universal meaning for one and all, is rather absurd. And so in that, I mean, I can see where the existential philosophers came from. So what do? You get back to what it is that we do between birth and death.
Yeah.
All that we can do.
All that we can. And what we can. That's it.
Or as you've said to me before, Alan, life may not have meaning.
But it has
Your
purpose.
life may not have meaning, but you can have a purpose.
Yeah. And that's it. There you have it. There is no meaning to it, but it is the struggle to find purpose. that's their struggle. That's what the play is about. That's what we are about. On the question of absurdist drama, on that definition, I would include my actual favorite play in the world, King Lear, because if Godot is absurdist, so is Lear. But enough on that topic. We have to bring it to an end. That was a delight. I enjoyed that enormously. I hope those viewing enjoyed it enormously. Hazel, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I will see you again next week. We will all see you again next week. Endgame. In the meantime, thank you all for being with us. If you have any further questions, if you have any more comments, positive or negative, doesn't matter. Send them to us. We'll get back to you. We'll email you back any question you ask us. We'll be back again next week talking about Beckett's remarkable shorter play, Endgame, which, to my mind, is only a little bit short of the greatness of Waiting for Godot. I think it is a remarkable piece. It's a fascinating piece. It's a very funny piece. It's an extraordinary creation in terms of its writing. And again, a play that Beckett started in French and then rewrote into English. So that's next week. Do join us for that. In the meantime, do remember, webinars will always be free. You can watch them every week. If you miss them live, you can catch them on YouTube. This one will be on YouTube momentarily. But although they're free, we still have to raise money, and I'd be deeply, deeply grateful for any donation you care to send us. As I always say, no matter how much, every dollar counts. We're striving to get back to being on stage again come the fall, and to do that, we have to keep making money. So anything you can send, please do. Much appreciated. And in the meantime, do the usual. Wash your hands, wear your mask, and take very good care of yourselves. Bye for now.